Ragin Cajun Diamond Sports had a jam-packed weekend. Let's recap it all here on Ragin Rundown. What's good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another episode here on Ragin Rundown, the show where you will know all things UL athletics. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick, but you know you can always call me Fitz. Before we get started, if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, like this video, share the video, and drop a comment down below. If you're listening on podcast, be sure to follow the feed, rate the show, and leave us a review. It may seem small, but it will help us get in front of more Ragin' Cajun fans just like yourself. And in today's episode, we're recapping the jam-packed weekend over Valentine's Day weekend and the Mardi Gras parades that were happening and all of those things, which is why I didn't drop any episodes. I was out with my family, catching some of the parades, some beads and all those things like that, having a good time here during this Mardi Gras season. But the baseball team opened the season with their series against Missouri State. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And then also softball had the Ragin' Cajun Invitational, which we will begin the show by recapping that. Louisiana would finish the weekend 3-2, playing 5 games. They had a doubleheader on Friday and then a doubleheader on Saturday, and then closed out the weekend with a single game on Sunday. The likes of their opponents included Ole Miss, Prairie View A&M, and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So what we're going to do is quickly recap each of these games, so it's not a whole bunch of numbers and stats and everything like that, but just recapping the premise of how a lot of these games went. We'll do the same thing with baseball later in the show. So we'll start with the first game, which was Ole Miss coming into town, and it would be one of 2 matchups that the Cajuns would have with the Rebels in the weekend. Ole Miss would win that ball game 5-2, in which, the Rebels came out and scored a run early on a solo home run. Louisiana responded by scoring 2 runs in the third. Ole Miss then answered with 3 in the top of the fourth. They went up 4-2 at that point, and then they added an insurance run there in the sixth to make it 5-2, which was ultimately what the final score would end up being. They would score 5 runs on 8 hits. Louisiana would score 2 runs on 4 hits. And what we've seen a lot of throughout this very young season early on is that this team just doesn't like playing with a lead. There have been few games other than the one on Sunday that we'll talk about where they've jumped out and put their foot on the gas, pedal to the metal, and just haven't given the lead up. And so it's a common thing. And we talked with Coach Habits about that last Monday. If that is something that's a world that they want to live in. And she jokingly said, no, I don't think my heart can take it. And that is true. Like when you're playing these top-notch teams, top 25 team, like what Ole Miss was, they were ranked 23 coming into this game. There are not moments where you can give them an opportunity to jump ahead, even if it is just by 1 run. You want to be able to get a good jump start and then being able to build on those leads. They're going to get their hits and their runs scored because they're a good ball club as well. But you want to be able to maintain leads based on what you built very early on. So in this game, Sage Hoover pitched a complete game in the circle. She allowed 8 hits, 2 earned runs. She had 3 strikeouts and 5 walks, which is something that obviously you want that number to decrease just a bit. But she was able to manage throughout the game to make things work. At the plate, you didn't have as efficient of a game as what you have had throughout the season, only having 4 hits in your 25 at-bats. And then the RBI that you had brought in was Haley Hart and Lily Knox being able to drive in runs for themselves. So Louisiana drops their first game, and then the second game, they would take on Texas A&M Corpus Christi, the first matchup of 2 that they would play against this team. And it was the complete opposite. What we've seen now is that this team knows how to respond after suffering a loss. They would win that game 5-1. They scored their first run in the bottom of the third, and then they had an electric 4-run 5th inning, and that would ultimately be able to hold off Texas A&M Corpus Christi as they only scored 1 run in the top of the 7th, which that was a flyout. But in the third inning, Kennedy Marceau would have a double that would score Mia Lascano. And then Haley Hart had an inside the park home run that brought in Kennedy Marceau, Mia Lascano, and um, Natalie Johnson as well. So you saw a lot of players get an opportunity to get multiple hits. Once again, you didn't have that many hits in your at bats, but you were able to score runs, and then you were able to get a great pitching performance from Lexi Delbray, a complete game for her as well, and also a career day for her. She only allowed 4 hits, 1 earned run, 4 walks, but 10 punch outs, which is impressive. And I believe that was a career high for her. Total number of innings, total number of strikeouts as well. And she did it on 123 total pitches. So those first 2 games, you were able to see your older pitchers really get into their groove. And like we talked about in the opening, we can knock off some of that rust. As we know, Lexi didn't play last season. Sage has not played the past 2 seasons. So you were able to see them play a complete game and could tell that they were able to go the distance. So they were able to pick up that victory as a result of that. The third game that Louisiana would play would be a rematch with Ole Miss, in which they would win that ball game 8-5, and it would be thanks to a walk-off home run at the end of the game by Brooke Otto that would put them above Ole Miss in this game. Early on, Ole Miss scored 5 runs. You went down 5-0 after 2 innings. Again, this team does not like playing with a lead. They like coming from behind. In the third, you scored 2 runs. You scored a run in the fourth, a run in the fifth, and then also a run in the sixth on a fielder's choice. And then Brooke Otto was able to walk it off in the bottom of the 7th inning. That just continues to show the resiliency of this team that we talked about so many times, the way that they are able to continue to battle back, put themselves in a position to win a ball game like this, which again, you don't want to live in the world of always having to come from behind, but it's good to see that when it's an opportunity to come from behind, that your team is able to do that. In the circle, Julianne Tipton got the start. She went 5 innings, allowed 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 5 punch outs, 4 walks. She faced 24 batters. And then Sage Hoover was your closer. She was able to slam the door shut and keep you in position to then be able to come back and ultimately walk it off on the back half of that game. I believe this was one of the first times that we've seen Sage come in to close like that. Normally, it's been Julianne coming in and slamming the door shut in a lot of instances. So it's interesting to see how Coach Cal Brady has been working out the bullpen, and whether that's running different pitchers out to start and different combinations of seeing how they're able to work in relief, how they're able to work off, starting the game off in the circle and pitching as well. So that was a huge victory for them. But then, like I said, they had a doubleheader. So they had to finish the night against Prairie View A&M, who were, I believe 2-4 coming into that ball game. And so in all honesty, it's a lesser opponent that you're facing in this instance. So you come in expecting to win, but you didn't put your best foot forward, and ultimately you dropped that game 6-5. And a game where you ultimately had an opportunity to be able to come back from behind and win the game once again. Prairie View did allow 3 errors, so they were able to overcome their own mistakes to pick up a huge victory, and it kind of sours the day with you getting an upset earlier in the day on a walk-off fashion. Bailey Mackles, freshman pitcher, got the start. Lexi Delbray came in relief and was able to get 5 strikeouts, only walking 1 batter, but 7 walks by Bailey Mackles. I believe this was the first game that she started of her young career, and then had 6 earned runs after going 4 1/3 inning. It's a freshman getting an opportunity to start a game. It was important to do that, but obviously you would have wanted to see a little bit better coming from her. She's young in her career. She's going to have more opportunities to pitch more innings, but this is a lesson learned that she's going to be able to grow from this. Now, obviously, from a hitting standpoint, you just have to be better in instances where a team is allowing you, opportunities, whether that's the pitcher, walking batters on base. They had 5 walks from their pitching staff. So getting you opportunities to be able to score runs, you have to find ways to manufacture those runs and beat teams that you're supposed to beat. That's ultimately what this one boils down to. You would have wanted to have this one back, but Louisiana was able to respond emphatically, closing out the weekend with a 23-0 victory over Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They finished the weekend, like I said, 3-2 and overall 6-3. They came out and scored 10 runs in the first. None of those runs that they scored came from home runs. So that means they simply were just coming out and they were swinging for the fences and they were finding ways to score runs. They did it in multiple ways. Madison Manning had a double to start it off. Brooke Otto had a single. Emily Smith had a single that brought in a pair of runs, or three runs, two runs, excuse me. Mia Norwood got a chance to come in. She triples, brought in 3 runs. Mia Lascano grounded out to second, and Mia Norwood was able to score. Haley Hart doubled to left center. They went up 9-0. Madison Manning back at the top of the order, or back there where the scoring began. She was able to close things out, and they have 10 runs there in the first. And then you had 1, 2, 3 homers in the back half of this game where you scored 23 runs. It was extremely close to a school record in terms of hits. I think the school record, according to Kevin Foote's tweet, was 27. They got 22 hits and they were able to score 23 runs. So an impressive showing from the team, again, being able to respond after suffering a loss, having a letdown. I don't know what Coach Habits said to them in that post-game huddle, but it worked because the ladies came out and played inspired, and they were able to ultimately come back and respond in an emphatic way. Major takeaways from the weekend for this team, obviously, is that you have offensive firepower, which we've talked about so many times. That's not anything that you're going to have to worry about. It's going to be about, can you build a lead early and maintain it and not allow teams to come back? And how can you manufacture yourself through the circle, through your pitching staff, of being able to keep teams from scoring runs as well? If your pitching can continue, and as we know in diamond sports, typically your pitching may be good and your hitting may be not so well, or vice versa. As they work to get in sync together, that is when things are really going to start clicking for this team. So they end the weekend 6-3 overall, and like I said, 3-2 in the ball games that they were able to play in, those 5 games that they played in. Haley Hart was absolutely exceptional. If I had to give an MVP to someone through this weekend, it would have to go to her. Right now, she leads the team in RBI and home runs and your batting average for all of your starters. She's second in on-base percentage and leads in slugging. She is earning the nickname that Coach Habits has given her in money, because she's been absolutely that. So now Louisiana will pivot and will once again have a big matchup on Tuesday, February the 17th, as they will take on number 6 Florida State. That will be a road game. First pitch will be at 5 p.m. So they will once again have an opportunity to play against a very caliber team, a team that has been to Oklahoma City, has played in the College World Series, where you're ultimately trying to go, and they will be able to see how they handle up and face against a quality program just like that. So we're going to take a quick timeout, and when we come back, we're going to talk about baseball and what they were able to do against Missouri State when we come back here on Ragin Rundown. Louisiana baseball opened their 2026 campaign at the Teague against Missouri State, and unfortunately went 1-2 in the weekend, dropped the series in the first 2 games, but were able to close it out with a Game 3 victory. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll go quickly over the game recap of these games. In Game 1, Missouri State jumped out to a 2-0 lead through the first 7 innings of this ball game, and then the final 2 innings was where things kind of collapsed or opened up more so for the Bears, and it was more of a nightmare for Louisiana. Your bats were extremely quiet throughout this game, but you did score your 2 runs throughout the entire game in the bottom of the 8th. So you were down 4-2 going into the 9th inning, but then there in the 9th inning, you allowed 4 runs to be scored. And ultimately, Missouri State was able to win that ball game 8-2. So your bats were quiet. The only RBI that you had came from your two freshmen in Blaze Rodriguez and Colt Brown. Not a lot of players were getting a whole lot of action going with the bats, as you only went 4 of 30 at bats, and then the 4 hits that you had. And then your pitching early on was strong. Ty Roman got the start. The freshman, or excuse me, the transfer from San Jacinto Junior College. He went 5 innings. He had allowed 5 hits, 2 earned runs, just 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. He went for 5 innings. Like I said, he faced 21 batters. He pitched 84 pitches. But then on the back half, the guys that you brought in to try to close the game out let it slip away just a little bit for you. Garrett Carter goes 3 innings. He allows 2 earned runs. And then Bryce Wilson comes in as a freshman, I believe he is, comes in and he allows, yes, Bryce Wilson is a freshman, true freshman from Chalmette. He allows 4 earned runs on just 18 pitches. And then Parker Smith goes 1 inning for you and has a strikeout. But ultimately, the damage was already done from there. And because your bats were so quiet, you weren't able to recover from that. So a bit of a letdown in game 1. But obviously, this is a 56-game season, so you have more games to play in front of you. So we shift our focus more to game 2. And that's where your bats were able to pick up and caught fire. As you scored 12 runs in this game, and you had a pretty sizable lead. But again, you had a little bit of a letdown there in the back half, in the final 2 innings of the first 9, where you saw things kind of slip away from you, and you drop the series to Missouri State. You lose 13-12. Louisiana and Missouri State went scoreless the first 2 innings. Missouri State then scored 2 runs in the top of the 3rd. Louisiana answered with 5 in the bottom of the 3rd. And then they scored 2 more in the 4th. So now you're up 7-2. You go to the 7th, and the Bears score a run in the top of the 7th. So now it is 7-3. And then you score 3 runs. So now you're up 10-3. So you build up a very large lead. You're going into the top of the 8th. And now you're trying to find a way to just slam the door shut. But here come the Bears. They score 5 in the top of the 8th. So now they cut the lead down to 2 runs. You get to the bottom of the 8th. You can't manufacture any runs scored. They score 2 more in the top of the 9th. You can't get any more in the bottom of the 9th. So you go to extras. Missouri State scores 3 in the 11th. You only score 2 in the bottom, and you lose the game by 1 run. So obviously this one was an instance where you let it get away from you. Your bats were a little bit better. You ultimately had 15 hits in 42 total at bats, but you let things slip away from you there on the back end. So your bats looked a little bit better, but then you see things shift a little bit once again in the back half of this game. Andrew Herman got the start, going 5 innings. He had 5 walks, but they were kind of sporadic throughout. He had 6 punch outs. He faced 22 batters, and he pitched 99 pitches. He had 99 pitches thrown. And then after that, you saw Sawyer Pruitt come in and throw 50 pitches. He went 2 innings. He didn't allow any earned runs, and he had 4 punch outs. You maybe would have liked to see him more, but like we talked about, Coach Deggs is likely saving him to be able to start on Tuesday when they play against Rice. So then you take him out. You're in the 7th. And like we said, that's where things started to kind of unravel, which was in the 8th and 9th inning. So Tyler Pappenbrock comes in. He goes a third of an inning. He gives up 5 earned runs. Then Cody Brash comes in after him. He gives up 5 earned runs. And then Cole Flanagan closes you out. But again, it was too little too late at that point. Again, it's still early. This team is finding ways to come together, to blend hitting and pitching together as well. So this is not the time to be hitting the panic button and saying fire Deggs and all of these crazy things that some people troll and say on social media. It's very early. But this is something to keep an eye on for sure. The pitching staff has an opportunity to grow and get better and work cohesively to figure out, hey, if we get a great start from our guy on the mound for 5 innings, we got to find a way to slam the door shut in those final 4 innings. We have to be able to do that. And I think ultimately they are going to find a way to be able to do that because they were able to do it in the third game. The final game of the series after you had ultimately dropped it was just an opportunity now to get a win and to salvage some of this weekend. They were able to do that, winning the game 9-7. Both teams scored 3 runs in the first inning. Louisiana then scored a run in the second. They go up 4-3. They scored 3 in the fourth. So now they're up 7-3. Both teams trade a pair of runs in the fifth. So now that would be 9-5. And then after that, Missouri State scored 2 more runs, one in the sixth and one in the top of the ninth. And you were able to hold on to win the game. So you scored 9 runs on 7 hits. Less hits that you were able to get, but you were able to manufacture those runs in. 7 hits on 31 at-bats. And throughout the weekend, you didn't have very many multi-base hits, not a lot of doubles, not a lot of triples. But in the moments that you were able to get those hits, you were able to get it done. J.R. Tollett got the start. He goes 5 innings, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 8 punch outs, and a walk. So not the best of starts from your starting pitcher. But then on the back half, the rest of the bullpen was able to hold things off. Cole Flanagan goes for an inning. He only allows 1 earned run. Parker Smith comes in for an inning. He doesn't allow any earned runs. Hayden Pearson, the Ascension Episcopal product, goes 2/3 of an inning. He gets 2 punch outs, and then they take him out, I think, after a walk. And then Garrett Carter, goes 1 1/3 inning, closes the game out, giving up just 1 earned run and 3 punch outs. So it was the complete opposite of what you had seen in the first 2 games, where your pitching staff was able to close the door shut and were able to hold off Missouri State to ultimately allow you to pick up the victory. So major takeaways from this weekend. Obviously, you're wanting to see more consistency from your bullpen throughout the entire series, where if we get a great start, we got to find a way to close the door. And then if we don't get that great start, then we still have to find a way to close the door. Hitting wise, getting the spark going a little bit earlier, not leaving as many runners on base, and making things happen a little bit better for you as you're progressing through the season. So over the weekend, Rigoberto Hernandez, somebody that we talked about in the preseason preview, which if you want to go back and watch that to get a glimpse at some of the players that's now on this roster, you can check that out. He would have 11 at-bats. He had 4 hits and one of the 2 home runs that you had over the entire weekend. You only had 2. One came from him, which I told you that he had the ability to do that because of the final scrimmage that I saw them have that Tuesday before opening day. I saw him hit a home run, and you can check that video out on my social media platforms at JFitzTV. So he has the ability to hit home runs, and he did it in game 3. And then also Liamade was the other player that hit a home run, and they were actually back-to-back home runs, solo home runs for you. So both Rigoberto Hernandez and Blaze Rodriguez were good for you at bats. Both of them were 4 of 11 on the weekend. Blaze was able to have 4 RBI. Rigoberto had 2, obviously with one of them being the solo home run for himself. So that's pretty much how things shake out for you. And the next thing that you will have is a game against Rice on Tuesday. I believe that first pitch is at 6:35. And it's on Tuesday afternoon. And then after that, you have another series at the Teague, a 3-game series against Maryland. First game will be on Friday at 6, Saturday at 2, and then Sunday at 1. So now it's an opportunity that now you have the opening weekend jitters, Mardi Gras weekend. You had the new uniforms. You get a lot of those nerve out of the way. And now it's about going on a run and playing some quality baseball to ultimately try to get your way back to the Sun Belt Championship game, and ultimately trying to get into a regional and then letting the magic try to happen in the postseason. So we will be keeping our eyes on both Diamond Sport teams as they progress throughout the 2026 campaign. Guys, if you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much. If you're watching on YouTube, please do me a favor, like this video, share it with someone else, and leave a comment down below. Tell me, who do you think was your MVP from the weekend for both baseball and softball as well? If you're listening on podcast, please like the podcast feed, follow the podcast feed, rate us, and leave a review as well, because as you continue to do those things, we're able to get more Ragin Cajun fans that can see what we're producing here on Ragin Rundown. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick. We'll see you guys next time.